best practices and lessons learned. Let's welcome the moderator for the session, Dr. Miao Lui, the Secretary General of CCG.
Afternoon. Welcome to our third roundtable, Powering Innovation Strategy for Digital Economy, Best Practices and Lessons Learned. 非常欢迎大家来到。
You're warmly welcome to attend the roundtable session 3. Empowering Innovation Strategy for Digital Economy, Best Practices and Lessons Learned. We have actually had a full day agenda, and we have experienced the previous 2 sessions and keynote speeches, a lot of discussions. China's keep opening up, and the CIFTIS in Beijing is also the frontier of testing the positive policies from the government. So today, we're very happy to see a lot of topics discussed today, and development digital economy is a very important part and component of the world global trade, especially a lot of GDP is pretty much driven by digital economy.
At the forefront of development and provide a unique opportunity for countries to accelerate economic growth. It's an engine for the GDP growth globally, equivalent to 15.5% of global GDP, growing 2.5 times faster than global GDP over the past 15 years. Today we have invited a lot of very important roundtable discussions. Let me introduce all of them. 首先呢，我想介绍一下。
So first of all, I'd like to introduce the esteemed guest for this session. We have invited guests from the industry, enterprises, and from the commercial areas, which are very influential, especially in digital practices. And first of all, Nora Fraser,
China Business Council， 这个范诺亚先生是加州。Joseph Killing， 爱尔兰驻华大使馆。
Council of Trade, Commerce, Technology, Innovation, Embassy of Ireland in China. Madame Liu Chang, Vice President of Cornell Brems AG China. And Quan Bing, CCG Senior Council Member. Welcome. And William Shui, CCG Senior Council Member. And Tom Simpson, the Managing Director of China Operations and China Chief Representative at China British Business Council, and Tom Mengyan, Miranda Wang, CCG Senior Council Member and Managing Director of ETS China. So let's directly move to the topics for this discussion. The opportunities and challenges brought by digital economy, and please share with us from your professional perspective and from the perspectives of the best practices and lessons learned in your respective industries, your best practices and your experiences that have been engaged with as to how to set up the standardized market for exchanges of data, and how to speed up the opening up of the market, and how to add more values for the digital economy, and how to make the trading services more influential, driven by digital economy, especially after COVID-19 pandemic is over. At the same time, we know that in China, we are also applying for CPTPP and DAPA, joining the international governance. So with your respective experiences and expertise, how to maintain fairer and justifiable digital governance and orders. And of course, last but not least, for the digital transformation, what kind of profits and what kind of barriers you are gonna receive and encounter in your respective industries due to digital transformation. And we know that the 2-zone leading office in terms of the policy test stones for the policies of the central government also become more and more influential. And previously we haven't heard a lot of discussions, so please control your time limits. And I'd like to invite Nora Fraser Managing Director for Canada-China Business Council. And Official know-how is very influential person and a leader in business and also the policy promotion between China and Canada. So I'd like to hear your take regarding your experiences and practices.
I will read my remarks here, so bear with me. But firstly, allow me to thank CCG once again for convening this forum and these panels today alongside of the CIFTIS events. These opportunities for international business community to voice our concerns and share our views on these important topics candidly are few and far between these days. And so CCG does act as a very important platform for connection and communication. And so thank you again for inviting the Canada-China Business Council to both support and to contribute to the dialogue. Today's topic is one that I think that so many of my esteemed co-panelists will have more insight to add than myself. But so I'll keep this brief, and I will try to just make three kind of key points that I hope might act as takeaways for you today from us at the CCB. So we in Canada, very much like China, have a long history of innovation, likely as a result of the harsh environment that we find ourselves in for so many months of the year across much of our geography. In energy, such as nuclear and hydroelectric, alongside our significant investments in renewables, we actually have a rich background in collaborating with China. Companies like the Candu nuclear reactors and Canadian Solar are great examples of Canadian innovation in clean tech and in energy. Furthermore, in sectors like agritech, telecommunications, and transportation, a standout in the Canada cooperation, or Canada-China cooperation, I should say, in this field is the Bombardier Railway Unit that built out a lot of the early high-speed railway across China, and the subway track in many of the cities, and the car technology that we have today across actually dozens of cities in China. Now, Canadian companies like Nortel and BlackBerry that you may have heard of have tremendous background in China as well. Now, while the fortunes of both of those companies have faded, they learned the hard way that investment in continuous innovation is just as important as initial seed stage ideas. Today, our digital and e-commerce firms are leading the way in China with companies like Shopify and Applyboard, a couple of unicorns, as well as even SMEs like Whippic Marketing and Technologies are expanding rapidly into the market and regionally across APAC through China as a base. So these unicorn firms are actually all blossoming. They're gaining a global footprint and, despite seeing a never-before-seen level of international competition. So why am I telling you about these Canadian companies and not talking about digital innovation? Because, in fact, all three of these stories have what we in Canada would say are three key things in common that actually set them up for success. And so I'm going to kind of hark on a little bit of the lessons learned and the best practices here that we've kind of come to learn in some ways in the hard way in Canada. So number one, regulatory environment. These companies all thrived in Canada's safe environment for innovation that allowed for growth and of research and development, fostered intellectual property rights through our transparent, rule of law-based legal system, and could develop technology without threat of politically motivated crackdowns. When there was infringement on their property or on their technology, there was a robust legal practice with top global firms ready to represent companies' interests in our open courts. Number two, investment from government and private sector. All of these business stories that I mentioned earlier started from an idea, and the Canadian investment market spurred the move from 0 to 1, as they say. The Toronto Stock Exchange provides clear rules for listing and even has a venture board for new initiatives called the Toronto Stock Exchange Venture. Canada's provinces and the federal government provide bridge loans and financing, and Canada's export bank, called Export Development Canada, or EDC, would underwrite those commercial loans and offer trade finance tools like letters of credit for early stage deals that allowed these companies to go global and find a foothold in China later in their stories. So, number one, regulatory environment. Number two, investment from both government and private sector. And number three, education. Canada's top-ranked schools and universities provided the soil for the seeds to grow as both state-funded and globally competitive options. Universities like McGill, Waterloo, University of Toronto, and the University of British Columbia are renowned especially for their incubation programs. for early stage open technology startups, and they can there access consulting, capital, and legal advice, often right on campus. So an open, engaging, and free-thinking post-secondary and postgraduate experience was critical for all of the founders of these companies to find their way to domestic and eventually international success. And a final thought, this doesn't really fall into my three categories, but it occurred to me earlier in the day, and it's something that I think is really important as we want to avoid as much de-globalization and decoupling as we possibly can. In digital, I think it's really important that we concentrate on standards. More and more Canadian firms operating in China are talking about two standards in two internets, two systems. This is going to do us a great disservice in the future. It's going to make it more and more challenging to integrate, to interact, to do business. And we think that global standards are always the way to proceed, and there are many examples where that has proven to be the case. So again, I would argue that it's critical for global cooperation, and I think that those international standards in digital and in data are going to become more and more relevant for both Chinese and global companies. So with that, I will wrap up, and I will pass the mic to my esteemed co-panelists, who I'm sure have a lot to contribute, much more so than I. And thank you again to Mabel and to Henry and to the CCG for providing us this platform and this forum today. So thank you again. 非常感谢.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Noham. Actually, Canada did very well on the digital economy and increment for train those talents in your universities as well. Yeah, thank you very much for your introduction from Canadian companies and Canadian society for the digital economy. Next, 我们下面想邀请的是来自
Next, I'd like to invite from Ireland, Joseph Keating.
Ireland is good at the innovation sector very much, and a lot of small and medium companies innovated in your country, especially on the digital economy. Mr. Joseph Keating was appointed as Trade, Commercial, Science, Technology, and Innovation Counselor in 2020 as the first officer from the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment to be assigned to the embassy in Beijing. 我们知道这个爱尔兰在这个方面确实是非常的领先哈，专门有一个这个参赛是关于 innovation 创。
So he's in charge of innovation. As far as I'm concerned, in the 50s year before, we also have invited the ambassador from Ireland to China to talk about innovation and digital economy. So without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Joseph Keating, Councillor, to introduce experiences from your country.
I too would like to thank the organisers for this opportunity to speak to you today. I have quite a number of things to say, but I'm conscious of time, so if you don't mind, I'll flick through pages and maybe pick out the different things. I suppose the first question that we were posed with what foundations need to be in place for the technology and innovation sectors to thrive. I think in Ireland we see two things as the foundations. The first is around research and development, and it's growing the industry, academic collaboration and the commercialisation of research. The second is retaining the talent and skills for enterprise innovation and transformation. And I think that ties in with the theme of CIFTIS this year, of collaborating for better development and innovating for a greener future. Fruitful collaboration between the enterprise sector and the public research system is essential if the full value of investment in public research is to be realised. Ireland has a long recognised value of industry academic collaborations and has developed comprehensive knowledge transfer system. Through such collaborations, enterprise gains access to cutting-edge research and scientific talent that can help stimulate new business opportunities, goods and services, while our higher education institutes gain access to real-time challenges in different sectors such as health, agri-tech, environmental sciences, artificial intelligence, and more have the capacity to deliver significant societal benefit, including improving health outcomes for citizens. As I mentioned as well, talent is harder than ever to source, secure and retain. But as market conditions and global trends continually change the playing field, investing in talent development can be a key source of competitive advantage. Having the right talent strategy will enable companies to weather short-term shocks and prepare for long-term challenges. Ireland's economic development depends on our capacity to develop human capital with the right mix of skills and expertise for evolving the needs of enterprise. The availability of talent will be a key component in addressing the disruptive impacts of digitalisation, adopting climate-friendly business practices and driving new scalable startups, winning FDI for the future. I'd like to just then give you maybe a flavour of some of the things that we've done over the past 2 years to help drive innovation. Ireland has been in the top 20 in the world as a country of innovation. It's slipped slightly in the last 2 years, and it was the government was actually put to blame. So within the last 2 years, the government have changed tack and have now started to invest more. And some of the things now, if I can. So currently we're focused on broadening and deepening innovation capability across our enterprise base, with a particular focus on increasing the number of indigenous small and medium enterprises investing in research and development, linking our multinational and SME base, and embedding a culture of continuous innovation. We found that actually innovation can mean different things to different companies. For some it means keeping abreast of new inventions and designing new products all the time. For others, it's simply just computerizing or moving to advanced manufacturing. But strengthening and coordinating our network of R&D centres and facilities to ensure they're at the forefront of technological advances, including the areas of advanced manufacturing, life sciences and bioprocessing, digital, ICT, food and agri-tech. Developing innovation solutions to enable all sectors of our enterprise base and society, including agriculture, construction, transport and energy sectors, to embrace and respond to the twin challenges of climate and digitalisation. So the focus on a broader enabling research and development includes enhanced engagement in standards development, maintaining competitive research and development tax offering. We've also introduced a new scheme whereby we're trying to attract PhD candidate students in, where we'll pay them to study particularly in green tech and pay them and try and retain and invest in talent in Ireland. So we're exploring new loan and grant initiatives to encourage business to research and to innovate more. In terms of the existing business as well, we have a number of state-backed supports to help fund business innovation, and these range from our local enterprise offices who deal with small micro companies. We give them innovation vouchers of up to €5,000 to help them innovate. Or for some of the larger companies, there's a funds of up to €300,000 if they have much larger projects. And one of our most recent government-backed supports for innovation comes from SkillNet Ireland. They're a business support agency whose mandate is to advance the competitiveness, productivity and innovation of Irish businesses through enterprise-led workforce development. It's investing millions of euros in the Innovation Exchange, which is designed to connect fast-paced Irish SMEs, which are often super agile, with those often slower-moving large multinational corporations. Some of the problems they've found is that the agile SMEs can't navigate the corporate structures, and so we have now the Innovation Exchange, whereby they can meet and get to the decision makers much faster. They have developed this program in the understanding that it's in this age of digital transformation, innovation is the catalyst that propels business forward, boosting productivity and capabilities. So I'll just finish on something that Noah touched on as well, and saying, talking about two internets and that. digital standards. Digital standards will increase in relevance not only in the production of hardware and software, but increasingly in the way digital technology is used. Standards in dealing with AI biases and standards for ensuring sound cybersecurity procedures and so on. But with increasing awareness of geopolitical relevance and all, the principal risk is the fragmentation in digital standardization caused by these tensions. The internet will eventually become fragmented if that happens. Ireland has a strong regulatory environment and would support, of course, international standards. I think I've probably taken enough, but if you need to come back.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very
much. We will have
much.
a second round later, so this is the first one. Thank you very much for your introducing the Ireland on the innovation, especially on the digital economy. 这些年我们我发现很多跨国
I found that many multinational companies would register operations in Ireland and SMEs innovation. There are some very good policies for SMEs to innovate in the digital economy, and I think other countries can share their best practices. And lastly, you talk about the standards for digital economy. We really need some global collaboration. We can come back to this topic, how different countries, different industries can build common standards, especially for digital trade or digital economy. Next, I would like to invite a representative from multinational companies, Ms. Liu Chang. She's the Vice President of Knorr Bremse AG China. It's a very influential company, and we'd like to share her views on digital economy. Maple, my colleagues, good afternoon. I would like to thank CCG for the invitation. I would also like to thank CCG for contributing to international exchange over the years. I would like to give you a brief introduction of my company, Knorr. We are a company more than 120 years old. We are leading truck transport, high-speed railway, subway. We provide a control system, doors. We have been working in China for more than 3 decades. We have 2 R&D centers. We have 3 plants. So we provide our products guarantee the safety of millions of commuters every day. New technology, using cloud computing, Internet of Things, 5G, these all drove the development of digital economy, which is a very important component of the modern economy. In the rail transport sector is also facing a lot of reform and modernization. We pay a lot of attention to the compliance of data flows, and it's also a pleasure for me to briefly share with you our views. So when we talk about digital transformation, companies are the main actors or players. But before the transition is mature, the government should play a very important role. I think the government can provide the guidance for particular sectors, and the government can also train a group of solution providers to provide practical use case to companies, and we should also support leading companies to provide empowerment platforms for SMEs. So to benefit from digital transformation, rail transport sector requires a lot of digital technology. Knorr is very interested in the interconnection of systems. By providing interconnected systems, we provide safe, efficient, high-performance rail transport solutions. In recent years, we pay more attention to energy conservation. For example, the in-vehicle systems like braking, door, air conditioning system, health management systems. Our health monitoring systems is mainly based smart system monitoring the conditions of the system, so we can provide pre-warning and diagnosis of the system, so that we can provide typical data of the life cycle of the systems. We can judge the trends of the system. And so it is proven that the health monitoring system can lower the downtime of systems. It can lower also the maintenance cost of the systems. Right now, China has a very good advantage in terms of digitization in the world. We hope that China can utilize its advantage in data so that companies like Canor can better contribute the digital empowerment capabilities. Thank you. Let me give the floor to Mr. Quan Bin, Senior Vice President of WeWork China. Good afternoon. I would like to thank Maple for the invitation. I would like to thank CCG for organizing this event. Maybe you know that WeWork is a global joint workspace leader. Globally, we have 600,000 members. We entered China in 2016 in Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Taipei. We serve more than 600 communities. We provided services to more than 100,000 company members. So digital, we know that apart from commuting and spending time at home every day, actually from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or even for longer time, we stay at the workplace. So how to better digitize our workspace is something we are doing today. So in today's globalization, in the post-pandemic era, a lot of the times the companies are very interested in lowering their cost, and also they're interested in maintaining good growth, in increasing uncertainties. On one hand, application of digital technology can help companies to better tap into their advantages to become more efficient. So in the post-pandemic era, WeWork launched a distributed workspace. So today, like our headquarters is in Chaoyang District, our sales department can be in CBD, our R&D department can be located in Haidian District. So these can make our companies more efficient and also increase the sense of satisfaction among the employees. This is all underlined by the application of digital technologies. So in the daily lives of our employers, if you come into our space, you'll see that it is different from traditional office space. We are more open, more innovative. The companies are familiar with each other. In the traditional 5A office buildings, you don't know who is on the floor above you or below you. You're not interested in the companies in the same building. But in the WeWork space, 70% of our members are familiar with each other. 50% of our members have business dealings with each other. So we are building a community, the concept of community in China. We call it community. So it's more like, so by building an ecosystem, we encourage exchanges and the synergies among the companies.
Like Madame Liu Chang, which is also a multinational company, and they are also aiming to create very good environments of the passions that can be shared by their employees. And for the big companies, for the big multinationals, the interactions between each other is very important, because that is the bondage to create new vitality of the business environment. And the mutual exchanges is very important between these enterprises. The digital means and digital conversation is something that we've been engaged in, and we want and will always aim at. And the second is that there's a lot of enterprises of innovation, especially the explorers in the innovative areas. They are kind of a pool of talents and also the young people. So they need to be deeply rooted on the innovation field. And so we are creating and expanding our area and a field of innovations, and we nurture the talents in science and technology, and we put a lot of input on that. And right now, it has been noted that from our perspective, WeWork has launched the WeWork Past product portfolio. The foundation of this portfolio is the best application of our current technologies for the travelers and for the businessmen when they are visiting another city. They do not necessarily to get interview on the launch. They just get into access to WeWork platform, and they can use the cards from WeWork, and this can be accessible to multiple platforms and multiple rooms. So even at your mobile phone, with the platforms of the app that you can download from the App Store, you can access to the different localities, more than 100. And you can reserve the room, and you can reserve the meeting, and you can reserve the interview, and also all the delegates and all the interviewees can get together, and they can queue in line via these cyber rooms. So the travels and also the businesses could be done online. This kind of user experiences are truly enhanced through this application of the cutting-edge digital technologies. So for WeWork, right now, we are nurturing our community and to perceive the innovative ideas for our clients and customers, as well as the employees' experiences as well. And the second, in the numerous scenarios of doing business and offices work, we believe there's a lot more to offer than we can provide solutions to the different stakeholders, including the enterprises, the governments, and which include the cross-nationals and the SMEs, as well as those big companies. So I hope that the digitalization could have more potential to be unleashed in the future. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Juan. This is a very interesting topic because we work apparently for tangible or intangible area. We work as a platform, and so we can sit together on this platform, but driven by digital technologies, looks like we could be together or together through the platform of WeWork. You were also talking about the platform by WeWork, in which the digital talents could be nurtured, can be pipelined, and SMEs and micro companies and individuals could also be connected. Thank you very much. With that, I'd like to invite another excellent business representative, LinkedIn, Mr. Shuai Peng, William Shuai, CCG Senior Council Member and General Manager of Public Affairs of LinkedIn. So, William, over to you. Thank you. Dr. Miao, esteemed guests and panelists and my friends, my name is William, and I'm in charge of public affairs for LinkedIn. Previously, I've been engaged with some of the very similar content for the past 2.5 years, and for this past several years, we have witnessed fundamental changes in the industry, in all kinds of industries. And I'd like to share with you my observations from LinkedIn perspective. And this is the biggest network of the career and professions of the people, of individuals, and also the platform of pulling the talents together. And so it is really pertinent for us to engage with the topic that we're discussing today. For digital economy, it is very interesting to look up for some of the figures from the Line Ministry, from the Ministry of Education in 2022. The graduate students number in total is 10 million, and up by 10% year on year. And that is, of course, a credit or dividend from the enhanced or improvement of the education in China. On the other hand, we also have to look at the negative part, because the appetite for the employer's perspective has been highly constrained due to a lot of reasons that we know, and the criteria for the labor market has been pretty much becoming more stringent, and the macro environment both at home and abroad are also becoming more and more shrinked, and also the returnees from overseas. Those students coming back to China, the number has surpassed 1 million for the first time, and for them, I think they're quite different with the background of education versus those educated in China. And when they are looking for their first job, they were faced with the asymmetry of information. This is the disadvantage of these people coming back to home. And the environment of the labor market and also the criteria and the threshold for them to get a job in here would see a lot of challenges. So with that, I think there are such a huge number of the graduates, and in the niche market, we can see there's still a huge gap of the talents. And according to the figure that we got in the digital talents in the next several years, the gap will be 11 million. And put it in a long run before 2025. In the Internet of Things industry, we would have a gap of 11 million. In the single sector, in AI sector, about 5 million gap. So in here, we can see a lot of problems and issues roaming on. And more severely, the job seekers are everywhere. They could not find a right job with good salary and earn their bread. So the hotspots of the development and the very popular industries, they are looking for good talents, but in fail. So this is really something the enterprises and also the different platforms and industries need to discuss about the digital transformation, about the talents nurturing. There's a lot to say. In the past several years, we've been engaged with the Tsinghua University and many other think tanks, sensing the pulses and the trends of the transformation, talking about the digital talents. As far as we know, in China and in Asia-Pacific region, the distribution of the digital talents versus that of the Europe and North America, which is quite different. And the digital talents is only focused in the telecommunications and IT and so on and so forth. But in North America and Europe, their digital talents are located or allocated in the extensive number of the industries, including those traditional and incumbent industries. Why? Actually, this disparity tells us that the traditional industries, their digital transformation is more ready than that of China and Asia-Pacific regions. So likely, with the same trend, we can do the similar analysis even for those provinces with the sophisticated manufacturing sectors like Suzhou in Zhejiang province and Suzhou in Jiangsu province and Shenzhen city in Guangdong province in Great Bay areas, with a huge number of talents featuring digital economy and technologies, while the speed of the conversion from the non-traditional to traditional industries is becoming accelerated right now. So it tells us that in the future, the opportunities, the big chunk of the opportunities going forward would lie in the traditional companies have the ability to attract the digital talents to come and work for them and retain these talents. And on the other hand, about the upskills of those talents, it involves a lot of talent, skills, and when we're making conversation with the management from the Tsinghua University, well, they have developed a portfolio of approaches from the basic talents all the way to the industry featured talents. So for the basic, it refers to the talents engaged and specialized in software development. And for them, the characterization of the basic talents means that they have the ability to do the research and to find out the new pulses. And but for another part of the talents, that they would be more adaptive. But for another part of the talents, disruptive talents, in terms of the AI technology, big data, and cloud computing, they are more cutting edge and they are at a more frontier area. Why we call them disruptive? Because these talents, they would have a stronger ability to emphasize the multiple scenarios adopting these technologies and application of these technologies, that they are actually the appliers and they are the matchmakers of the technologies itself in with those scenarios in the real life and in the specific and respective industries. So I think we need more of these disruptive talents versus the other or otherwise. That is one of the future trends of the talents. And due to time constraints, so much for me. And if you're interested in my topic, you can come to me with more conversation. Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Thank you, William. From LinkedIn. Next, I'd like to invite Tom Simpson. Tom is the Managing Director of China's Operation and China Chief Representative at China British Business Council. Like to choose English?
Okay, no problem. We are a bilingual panel. And yeah, actually, this panel we have previously there are two speakers from different countries to introduce their policy on the digital economy. Right now, I think you from Britain, you can introduce something from your country and your experience.
Absolutely.
Learn something from your policy making. Thank you very much.
Sure, very happy to. Thank you, Mabel, and thank you also to my fellow panelists for all of your insights on digital innovation. I would like to focus my comments on the UK's fintech sector, and outline some of the ways the UK has nurtured innovation in the digital economy, and in doing so, have generated one of our biggest success stories of the last decade. The UK's fintech sector has grown rapidly over the last 10 years to become the #2 globally behind the US as of 2021. In doing so, fintech has become the UK's largest startup sector, building directly upon our existing strengths in financial services. The UK now has 1,400 high-growth fintech companies in operation. Included in this number are 20 fintech unicorns, which equates to 50% of the UK's billion-dollar startups. To put a value on all of this, collectively, UK fintech companies have raised £22 billion in equity funding, with a staggering £7.4 billion of that secured in 2021 alone. Companies such as Revolut, Wise, Monzo, and Checkout.com have all launched in the last 10 years and joined the ranks of the more traditional players in taking on the next generation of financial services challenges and opportunities. There are numerous factors behind the explosive growth of fintech in the UK, which I will talk through briefly before sharing some thoughts on areas where we see potential for more activity, between the UK and China. A key factor behind this growth is the supportive policy environment for both fintech innovation and startup companies looking to enter and disrupt the sector. A good example of this is the UK FCA's regulatory sandbox, which allows firms to test innovative new products in the market with real consumers. Companies are able to submit applications for sandbox tests at any time of the year, and through doing so, receive the ability to test products and services with consumers in a controlled environment. The opportunity to find out whether a business model is attractive to consumers or how a particular technology works in the market. A reduced time to market at potentially lower cost, and support in identifying consumer protection safeguards that can be built into new products and services. Another key factor behind the growth of fintech in the UK is access to capital. I mentioned earlier that UK companies raised over £7.4 billion in 2021. This figure has already been surpassed in the first 6 months of 2022, with £7.6 billion raised so far, going against the global trend of slowing investment. While global growth in fintech investment has remained flat, the UK reported 24% year-on-year increase during the period, receiving more investment than the rest of Europe combined, in fintech, of course. This capital is international in origin, but also has a high degree of familiarity with the financial services sector. So to conclude, there are 3 key takeaways we can all learn from the example of UK fintech. Firstly, building upon your existing strengths, in this case, centuries of providing and innovating financial services to customers in the UK and around the world. Secondly, nurture a supportive policy environment that gives companies the flexibility to experiment. And lastly, access to capital. Lots of it, and ideally money that already has a strong familiarity with the core industry in question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, the experience and lessons from UK. Next, this last speaker of this round is Wang Mengyan 女士, Miranda Wang from ETS China. She is the managing director of ETS China. 有非常资深的在这个教
So a lot of experience in this education sector. ETS is a very famous company organization that manages TOEFL. So today, a lot of times the examinations are organized online. So I give the floor to Miranda. Thank you, Maple. So it's a great pleasure for me to be here on behalf of the education sector to talk about how digital transformation affects the education sector and our plan for the future. The digital transformation of education is a transition driven by digital technology. It is also a national strategy of China in the 14th five-year period. First, I would like to talk about how ETS promote foreign language education and internationalization of education in China using digital technology. Secondly, I would like to talk about how digital technology, AI, can be better linked with education. First, ETS is the largest organization engaged in the development of assessment. Every year, we provide testing services to more than 50 million people, including the TOEFL GRE tests. So you can imagine this scenario. If 50 million people taking part in the examination, if they all use paper, we print the papers and then take the papers to the classroom and collect and then read the papers. There's a lot of work to do. So I would say ETS is a leader in terms of application of digital technology. Digital transformation of education is an all-factor, all-business, all-process transformation. Testing and assessment method is only part of education, although it's a very important part of education. So ETS, as a developer of testing methods, we've been thinking about how to define the value of testing. It's not just about evaluating language proficiencies, but more importantly about the whole person. So TOEFL has been turned from a set of testing families covering small children to adults. So we use AI to analyze the big data from the past to improve the contents of the examination so that we can help people to better learn the knowledge, and hopefully we can help the students to learn more effectively after taking the test. The ETS experts have been studying and researching more advanced algorithms to use AI to analyze and identify different models of study and provide feedback to help teachers to better adjust their teaching methods. For example, in terms of speaking and writing, we use AI and human evaluators to work together, and which is an advanced methodology in the industry. And then next, let me share with you our experience in China. In 2020, we worked with the Examination Institute of Ministry of Education to combine the TOEFL results with the English language proficiency based on the big data from more than 100 testing locations, and we conducted research with Chinese experts. So to link the TOEFL results with the Chinese English language proficiency scale. This helps to improve the influence of language education in China in the world. And secondly, after the outbreak of the pandemic, we launched online testing methods so to make sure that the students can continue their plan to study abroad. We also know that many colleges have the need for internationalization, and we also encourage international students to come to study in China. So based on our data from the 11,000 universities globally, we support Chinese colleges to recruit international students. For example, for some joint programs at universities, for some renowned business schools in China, they are our long-term partners. We support them to improve their relations with international students, so to also promote internationalization of universities in China. And then very briefly about our outlook on digital technology. So we are still going to be focused on the business of examination. We're going to apply more AI, digital information, and statistical technologies to continue to improve the credibility of the examination. For example, college students in Beijing, he can, maybe at his home in Xining province, he can receive an interview. He can be interviewed by a teacher in India. So he applied to study at a certain country. So we can explore how to use big data and the data from open platform, how we can apply these better. And we also work with a number of speakers like the Noya from China, Canada Business Council. We work with a number of education companies. We acquired Cure Talent. We also participate in the funding rounds for Apply Board. So as a leader in the education sector, we hope the education data can be accessible and beneficial to all students in the world. And like WeWork, we already have explored some cooperation opportunities with WeWork, like for the weekends, your space can be open for students to take examination. It's just that your space is a bit more expensive for us. So if we are able to do that, then we can better use your space. And we also had a cooperation with LinkedIn last year. Every year, 1 million Chinese students came back from abroad. So we already have their data before they went abroad, like the selection of major before they left China. So we can help students to better choose the right major abroad. We can also help these Chinese students to come back to China. So we have, talked with LinkedIn about how to better help Chinese students to come back. And we are working with CCG to writing a white paper on. I mean, this September we're going to launch this white paper based on our understanding of the international talents, based on our survey and of experts in this area. Thank you.
谢谢 Marida。
Thank you, Marida.
南京学子王岩女士专门讲到这个人才培养这个方面。
So she talked about development of talent at CIFTIS. development of talents, studying abroad is very part of the services trade. It's a very important part of the services industry. You also concluded the first round of this round table.
Integrated in our panel，我们也就融合得很好了，讲了
So we have shared
questions for our panelists. Actually, have 7 panelists this roundtable, and 3 of you from the embassy and from the Chamber of Commerce, actually from the organizations, and rest 4 panelists from the multinational companies. So the first question to our panelists from the embassy and the Chamber of Commerce. From your perspective, how to actively participate in the activities of international mechanism of digital economy governance and promote to form more just and equitable and balanced digital economy rules? This is a macro question, how to participate in those international mechanisms from your perspectives. Another question, 另外一个问题呢，我想问问我们来。
Another question is for our representatives from multinational companies. For your companies, in the backdrop of the global governance of digital economy, so how can you better enable the recovery of the economy, especially how to contribute to a more stable supply chain?
嘉宾这个音序 alphabetic order, we steal from Mr. Fraser from the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Please, yeah.
Thank you, Mabel. It's an excellent question. It's an important one. I suspect that my colleagues to the right will have more to contribute than myself, but one thing that comes to mind when I think about international mechanisms that have had a lot of success in both in China and globally actually was represented earlier this afternoon by Sir Danny Alexander, which is the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank. And Canada is a very supportive member of the AIIB, as are some of the countries next to me and many more around the world. And I think that more and more global members are going to continue to come on board, especially from EMEA and Africa especially, as the bank is focused on, as Sir Danny I'm sure mentioned, on digital infrastructure and how important that connectivity is, both in terms of logistics and in terms of facilitation of business across borders in Southeast Asia and throughout China and beyond. It's a really good example of strong governance that has been, I think that when the bank was opened, there was a lot of contestation, a little bit of controversy surrounding it, and I think that they've really done a good job in quelling that and putting that to rest and putting that behind them and moving forward. And so there is a strong, I think, a good model for good, global governance, multilateralism through that mechanism. And what I would say from a Canadian perspective with respect to international trade mechanisms like the CPTPP or what some of the things that you see coming out of the U.S. for the Indo-Pacific and beyond, AUKUS, a number of other mechanisms that we've seen come to the fore in the last couple of years, is that you really need good buy-in from your local or from your regional governments. I mean, everybody's really got to be committed wholeheartedly and setting the ground rules in advance and playing by those rules as time goes on and not, rejigging the contracts or moving the needle later. Ensuring that buy-in and make sure it comes from senior representation, right? You've got to have top of government approach all the way through to make sure that those mechanisms are successful and have good buy-in in the long term. So I probably went far too long, but over to Joe and to Tom to see if they can round that out a bit.
Okay, thank you. No, I don't know why you think that we'd know much more than that. No, I agree wholeheartedly. I think, yes, you need buy-in, and it's all about cooperation. I think one of the issues at the moment is that digitalization is moving so quickly that, unfortunately, private companies may start looking to private solutions for it. So unless governments act quickly or at the highest level, It may be, as we kind of mentioned earlier, it may turn out to be that there'll be private standards and different standards in different blocks. So it's moving with the times basically, and needing to move quickly, I think.
I think just to sort of build on what Noah and Joe have already said, I mean, certainly multilateral collaboration is going to be crucial. I think at all times, all parties should remain sort of open-minded and open to sort of experimenting as well through the different ideas that we sort of arrive at. I think sharing experience as well. So I know that obviously the EU has been through, and the UK is very much part of this, the GDPR and the introduction of GDPR, and the experience that we went through in doing that has been shared globally, including through us here in China as well. So sharing experience is certainly a valuable exercise to do. But then also I think one of the things that the UK is doing, and I think a lot of European other economies are doing as well, is just we have very open economies, so we attract a lot of ideas and a lot of investment, a lot of businesses from around the world, and we kind of absorb their thinking and they absorb their ideas. So we kind of try to, as far as possible, adopt kind of an international mindset in how we do things. So that kind of helps in terms of creating alignment with the sort of that global cooperation kind of agenda. And then also I think there's the opposite of that as well. We have a lot of international companies in the UK who bring their ideas and their experience to other markets, including here in China, where for example UK banks, insurance companies do a huge amount of work in China to share their experience of all the products and services that they've developed for different markets to solve different problems, like for example life insurance and pensions and things like this. So there's a lot that you can bring and learn from these sorts of companies that helps to create a bit more of a sort of a common understanding of the challenges in front of people.
So, yeah, three of you mentioned that the international cooperation on especially the multilateral and the multilateral cooperation on this field is very, very important. And the digital flow itself is a globalization wave. So how to meet that challenge? It's a big problem for all the countries. We know that WTO reform is ongoing, but still made a lot of challenges, especially on e-commerce and the digital side. Thank you for the sharing. 下面呢，我们想请
Thank you. And I'd like to invite multinationals representatives to respond to the question I raised just now.
六。
好的，那就是如何
Okay, so regarding how to minimize the impact from COVID on economy, I think from the national perspective or the medium-sized enterprises or small-sized enterprises, I think the core issue here is to speed up the new economy and the new infrastructure development compared to the traditional infrastructure. It is featured and dominated by the access of digital economy and technologies and so on and so forth. So for the new infrastructure projects need to be supported by R&D, pooling all the efforts together from different stakeholders across borders to do research and development together. Like in Suzhou and Beijing, they respectively and separately set up the Innovation Center. And it is our hope that based on the Innovation Center, we can intensify the collaboration with our counterparts, clients, customers, research institutes, and higher education schools, and so on and so forth, to deepen the R&D and truly realize the values for the people for China, in China, and for the world, to actually mitigate the impact from the COVID and to accelerate the high growth rate of economy. Thank you. And Ms. Chen. Mr. Chuan, in a post-pandemic era, against the current economic situation in the world, a lot of things are uncertain. So the challenges for all the companies are how to cope with uncertainties. So the buzzword here that I can share with you is flexibility. And the flexibility of the funding, the flexibility of the management, and with a lot of CEOs and senior managements, I think one thing in common from their perspective is how to make plan, and what kind of new functions need to be set up, and how to cope with these problems and uncertainties while at the same time set up their functions in a fixed and steady way. So we have to put a majority of the resources and efforts on the current, like the next season or the next month, instead of 3 years to come or 5 years to come. So for us, we have to tackle the problems by providing the solutions to the issue of flexibility, spatial flexibility, and temporal flexibility. So for the management unit and the business development department, they can be flexible in terms of size and staffing, because they don't know which parts they need to focus and which area they need to streamline, or what kind of team need to be shrinked or streamlined. So flexibility is number one core, and the second is security or safety. In the post-pandemic era, the one typical case is that be the multinationals and big companies or medium-sized companies, the core issue here is location, location, location. The best location with the lowest cost. So that is the voice from the enterprises in common. As we know that for the enterprises, first of all, we have to focus on safety, security, or health. And they need to make sure that everyone working with them in the same roofing must be healthy and must be safe, must be secure, and they have to collaborate in a more secure and with a high well-being with each other. So the enterprises, they care this most. And for the enterprises, actually, the funding also need to be used in a maximized way. Like being alluded to by Mr. Wang, yes, SDG actually is something also we aspire as well. We want to have this pursuit, and we need to make use of CCG platform to be engaged with multiple stakeholders together. And so we need to be innovative, and we have to reshuffle ideas. And the biggest area, for example, the ETS, a test or examination, the mode of doing the examination could also be applied in the same route with the management of the industry, of enterprises of different sizes. And also the satisfaction rate of the employees is also very important. And you can just imagine within the work time during one day, how can we make them passionate as always, and how can we stimulate their passion to do the work? And probably during the lunch break or after the lunch break, probably they can have the access to do the workout. They can even have the boxing exercises. And this is a kind of consolidation of sort of morale of these employees, and we can generate the momentum out of these activities. And this is something we care most as well. And in terms of the governance against the uncertainties as the biggest backdrop, we need to find something certain out of many things uncertain. And that is where we are dedicated in. Thank you. Thank you. With that, I'd like to invite Williams from LinkedIn. Thank you. Last year, we started the discussion on post-pandemic problems. The questions like Chinese enterprises and companies, when they are enjoying the recovery of economy, what kind of talents they can attract, and what are the changes from the labor market, and what kind of talents they can recruit and able to recruit. So I think as a representative from LinkedIn, I'd like to talk about this issue from human perspective. Previously, I had a conversation with a professor, and he told me that in US there is a very influential professor who wrote a paper or article about talents, which has been published on Science and magazine engaged mainly on basic science research. So this is one breakthrough. And talents has been proven that has become the fundamental element for research or basic research. From the labor contract perspective, probably could be very simple and could be very down to earth and grassroots. But from this part of the perspective, I think it could also be of very important part of the strategies. And Suzhou, where I was visiting, and which also has been constrained by the occurrence of pandemic now, and how can they attract the talents of the best quality to work for them. And we also have surveyed some of the enterprises and the senior executives and who are specialized in internet programs. And they told me that before 2025, we would have a gap of 16 million of internet talents. It's really hard for us to recruit best talent for us or suitable talents for us. There's a lot of returnees from overseas, and there are a lot of graduates every year. But fairly speaking, the gap of the talents working for us and specialized internet has become the huge and or say biggest constraint for our future development. So I think the skills related with the talents, I have talked about the digital talents, skills, and the disruptive talents. And I hope that our educators and education systems and also the recruiters, you probably need to look for the talents with a high degree of disruptiveness or with multiple skills. I can give you some concrete examples. First of all, for the smart manufacturing, and the McKinsey recently have made so-called light towers programs or light towers plants, and China actually had several enterprises enlisted in this program. And if we are looking at this direction or this dimension from the recruitment perspective and combined with the criteria for the talents recruitment from the light tower plants, China's talents are specialized on analysis of data or the coding of the data, but the talents, our talents, their ability of transferring their skills into something practical is lag behind versus the counterparts in Europe and North America. So we really need to nurture more talents in that direction. Talking about the internet based on science and technology is the biggest recruitable and desired talents are in the application aspect. For the big health and medical areas, probably we aspire US medical level most because they had 2 million talents related with the medical science. And for us, we had 800,000, number 3 in the world. Not bad. And what surprised me most today is that in the area of universal health, which has become the skills most popular right now, and before we would never imagine this thing would happen. And we would have also that perception. In terms of the recruitment of the talents, the traditional industries, they would tend to recruit the very traditional graduates from the universities, and this is a very known process of recruitment. They will look for the talents directly from the graduates groups from the universities. And right now, more importantly, we have to look for the talents, not only graduates, but also with the combination of skills portfolios as well. And to the enterprises, they need to have someone working for them with the best practices and the best skills and suitable for the industry this enterprise is specialized in. Thank you. And Wang Yan, Ms. Wang. Previously, the representatives has been very informative, and I fully re-endorse Liu Chang perspective in China for the world. This concept, especially right now, when the data become a very sensitive issue, we have to have a self-detection and self-check ability, and also the legal compliance is very necessary, and a very rigid requirement, especially the multinationals. And this is the fundamental survival skills for these enterprises to survive in China. And on the other hand, I think more importantly, our discussion is very vigorous, and we know that against the background of the digitalization, enterprises becoming closer with each other due to digital economy, which creates more chemistry.
there's impact from COVID on different sectors. Different companies are facing different difficulties, but it also creates more possibilities and opportunities for everyone. So what we can do is to have active dialogue, like CIFTIs and organizations, think tanks like CCG can help companies from different sectors to have the dialogue about innovation so that we can explore opportunities in the niche markets and open markets. I would like to thank the CCG for organizing today's forum. So after 2 rounds of discussion, in the first round, you shared with us your policies and practice in the area of digital economy. In the second round, you answered our questions from the macro level. We have 1 hour and a half. Maybe lastly, you can use 1 or 2 points to wrap up your views on this, and we may have some time to take questions from the floor, but you can still use 1 to 2 minutes to add on top of this question.
Where to begin? Firstly, I think we've all learned a lot today. I think there was a really sort of stacked panel, as they say, Mabel. I would just sort of reiterate the points that I made earlier, and that I really hope that we can continue to see digital innovation fostered in China, in partnership always with Canadian and firms beyond that. We've seen that it really drives mutually beneficial growth, and we've come to have we've had a tricky couple of years in terms of the regulatory environment. There's been a lot of change, and we're hoping to see more and more stability in both regulatory and in data, in digital standards. So I know from the Canadian business community's perspective, we're definitely in on China. We're definitely invested, and we hope very much that things can start to stabilize, get back to some degree of normal, for everybody obviously here today, but especially in that digital economy world. And so thank you again for hosting and bringing us all together today, CCG and Mabel.
Thank you for your recommendation. Actually, this activities is a good platform to take your opinions and shaping the policy for the municipal level as well. Okay, next, please. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, again, I suppose I would again concur with Noah. I think digital technologies are moving so fast and all that. Actually, we should probably no longer refer to e-commerce and just call it commerce. And we can drop the E now because it's just everywhere. And as well, I think, yes, agree with Noah in that the regulatory environment will become a problem. So we need to see movement on that. Ireland's open for business. Ireland's a high-tech, innovative country, and anybody wants to talk to us. We're a small country, but we're very nice, and always happy to speak to people. If you have time tomorrow, you might drop down for a drop of whiskey downstairs at a stand. But no, on a serious note, I mean, yes, digital is the way it's going. It's the way it's gone, and we need to be on top of that. I think it's moving into everything, medtech, fintech, everything has tech at the end of it now. So, yeah.
I think from my side, it would be conclusive remarks would be sort of flexibility from authorities, willingness to experiment and try new things. One thing I didn't touch on in my comments earlier, but has been touched on by other panelists, is the sort of developing talent question. And that's not just sort of talent that goes into the businesses doing the innovation, it's also talent that goes into the government and the regulators that have to work with these businesses. That's very important as well, because you need to have an understanding on both sides about what you're actually regulating. And then lastly, more activities like we're doing today, which is sort of engaging the subject and doing what we can as collectively to learn about it.
Here, here.
那么我们大家知道，
We know innovation is the driving force for digital technology, and cooperation is the cradle of innovation. So we hope that the government, think tanks, companies, and international organizations can work together to build a platform so that we can promote international cooperation in the digital technology development and promoting the international governance of digital technology. I think today is a very good occasion, from the government, internationalizations, and companies are sharing their views. I think this is a very good foundation for success into the future. And we share the good wisdom from the companies, like from LinkedIn, from WeWork. So companies are developing in greater depth. As WeWork, we want to provide better service. At WeWork, we always say that we are the future way of work. It represents continuous innovation, iterations. Innovation is the prevailing trend into the future. We need to continuously improve our way of work. We need to empower the companies to create more create opportunities. We hope to also create more business leaders for the future. Thank you. So from my own perspective, I think in this backdrop, we need to be more brave to embrace changes. A lot of people are anxious. They think they are faced with a lot of different factors. But if we look at the fundamentals, if we look at the data, there are not that many changes. If we look at the population over the past few years, we already see the trends of aging population. It will become more prominent in the future. People are saying that the dividend of the population is gone and the cost of labor is going to increase, which will have an impact on our growth rate. But China is not the first society to become old. Japan already started their aging process in the 1970s. If we look at the trend, there are lots of good experience for us to make judgment about the future trends. In general, I'm still optimistic about the future of the Chinese economy. If we look at the consumption, especially in Tier 3, Tier 4 cities, we may have similar conclusions. So if we want to have a clear or correct understanding of mid to long term, if we just lay down to wait for the difficulties to just go away, then it may not be that difficult. And on the other hand, we need to embrace the changes. In the past 2 to 3 years, the government, launched the concept of internal and external cycles. And LinkedIn also made the necessary adaptations. We are continuing to improve the talent recruitment process in China, providing better service to companies. And we also try to find new growth points for our business in the international market. We launched the strategy of Go Global, helping Chinese companies to expand into the international market. I think many companies are doing the same thing. Another point is that we would like to encourage you to pay attention to new business models like flexible employment, etc. Due to the changes brought by COVID, many people may not need to have a fixed employer or may not choose to work in a fixed workplace. In the labor market in Europe, there are 100 62 million people that take up this gig job, and in China, about 200 million people work in this gig economy. So hopefully, the new model will have a major impact on people's way of life. But still, we are optimistic about the future, and we actively embrace the future. Thank you. Just want to go back to our theme. ETS has more than 40 years of history in China. We base ourselves in China, and to provide service to China, we paid a lot of interest attention to the needs of educators in China. As a non-profit research organization, we use examination methods to promote equity in education. And as time goes, we see that our business is not just about evaluation. We can also define ourselves as a data-driven company. So by testing, we can observe the pathway of a person's development. So we hope to also contribute to the quality in the primary education in China. We hope to help provinces in the West, help English teachers and students in the West to meet their needs and help them to get better employment opportunities in the future. So today's discussion, the theme is very relevant, and we hope to continue to work with CCG and other think tanks in the future. Thank you. I would like to thank the seven panelists for, they're from companies, embassies, and Chamber of Commerce, and thank you for sharing your wisdom and case studies. So so much for today's China Inbound Outbound Forum. After a whole day discussion this year, our theme is about the revitalization of services trade in the post-pandemic era and the new paradigm of the digital economy. And we want to better contribute to the development of two zones in Beijing. And we exchanged wisdoms and views. I would like to thank our distinguished guests, ambassadors, business leaders, and friends from the media. Also, I would like to thank the CLYD contribution. Our forum has received a lot of attention from the society, so through the CIFTIS platform and the CCG platform, we have provided live streaming of our forum globally, and we have an audience of more than 300,000 people watching it live. And the CCTV also covered this event. In the future, we will continue to work very hard. We believe CIFTIS is a very good event to showcase China's openness, and is a very good platform for exchange with other countries and promote trade in goods and in services. It's a very good platform for businesses to go inbound and outbound.
The GILD leaders and leaders, they have made a very good conclusion. CIFTIS platform, first of all, serve the communication of information and reach consensus, and also consolidate the trust. So, of course, these afternoon sessions and also the session for the roundtable among the ambassadors in the morning, we have pulled a lot of ideas together and consolidating the trust with each other as well. So for the in-depth development of CCG as a platform, it is a really valuable opportunity. I'd like to announce right now the Beijing Two Zones and Corporate Globalization and the 9th China Inbound Outbound Forum 2022 officially come to an end. And many thanks to Ms. Liu Yin, who is from the leading group of the Two Zones office and providing such a splendid platform of activities to us. Thank you. Thank you all.
请本场的
Let's
嘉
have
宾
a, yeah, let's have a group photo on the stage, our panelists, please.